In its quest to provide an open forum for discussion of controversial issues, this station allows hosts and their guests to express themselves without any significant censorship. You are advised that any view expressed by the host or their guest are not necessarily the views of the owners or management of TogiNet Radio, Togi Entertainment, or the Owners Group, Inc.
Motherhood Incorporated proudly presents Military Mom Talk Radio live on TogiNet.com. Co-hosted by Robin Boyd and Sandra Beck, the owner of Motherhood Incorporated. Military Mom Talk Radio is here with a powerful platform for women to discuss their ideas, issues, and concerns with respect to the military lifestyle. Military Mom Talk Radio encourages you to share your experiences of being a military wife and mother. This show is dedicated to educating your family about the many resources that are available in both the public and private sector, and we'll be sharing helpful information from women all over the world. We'll cover everything military, from helping a family member cope with post-traumatic stress disorder, to navigating government programs dealing with family issues, to the struggles of deployment, along with being a working mother both in and out of the home. This is Military Mom Talk Radio, and here are your hosts, Sandra Beck and Robin Boyd.
Hey, Military Moms, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Robin Boyd, and we have a great show today. There's so much we cover, Robin. I love that about our show.
I do, too. You know, it's always something new, something different, and we're always looking to find all kinds of stuff. I have more fun sometimes. You know how it goes. You click on something, you find a blog, you click on something, it brings you to a site, you click on something. The next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Isn't it the truth? There's so much, there's so many great sites out there. And, and I love the idea that blogs allow us to have, like, the same exposure that a company, that spends, hundreds of thousands of dollars on their Internet presence, and somebody puts up this cool little military blog, and, and it proliferates.
Absolutely. And it's a sharing thing, because we are starting to spread out there, and we're on quite a few sites, and they're on ours, so that reciprocity really is wonderful. We appreciate all the people who we've been able to share information with.
Well, and when you talk about the sharing of information, we've just had some amazing authors on the show this year and last year, and when we come in second segment, we're going to talk to Commander Sheri Snively. She's a Navy chaplain, and with her BS in economics, and she has just made this just beautiful book, Robin, and I got some other books today in the mail, which was really fun, because we're just going to have, the best authors out there on our show. And another book that came in today to the office was this book, Faith Deployed Again, and it's daily encouragement for military wives. So I'm encouraging everybody to check out not only The Faith Deployed Again by Jocelyn Green, but we're going to welcome Commander Sheri Snively coming up with Heaven in the Midst of Hell. There's so much great writing out there. And Robin, you brought up some things that you found on the web today that are interesting.
Yeah, I did. As I peruse through, I like to jot down a couple of things, and I think that it's really nice when we chat to have a couple of items that I know are the buzz of the week. I happen to be, and there again, I didn't specifically look for something on the East Coast, but I happened to find an article from a newspaper in Framingham, Massachusetts, the Metro West Daily News, that talked about a group of World War II veterans who have been sharing their wartime memories to be included in a film, Saving the Reality. It's a documentary being made in partnership with the Museum of World War II in Natick, Natick, Massachusetts, founded by a man named Kenneth Rendell. Now, we have had quite a few people who have been involved in documentaries of World War II, so I just love the fact that there's yet one more outlet for these wonderful stories to be preserved. Now, this gentleman said he decided to make the documentary, which includes veterans to share their World War II experiences for future generations, after writing a similarly titled book that used images of museum artifacts to explain the origins and the course of the war. It is directed by a man named Tim Gray. It is produced by this gentleman, the museum owner, Rendell, and it's going to be narrated by actor Dan Aykroyd.
Really?
Yep, it's a 90-minute film, and it's scheduled to be released in November, and they're going to have their premiere at the House of Blues in Boston, which Aykroyd co-founded in 1992.
Well, I guess Gary Sinise was busy, huh?
I guess so. And what's kind of neat is that this museum was begun because this gentleman is one of the foremost dealers of historic letters, documents, and manuscripts, and he is a native of Wellesley, Massachusetts, and he opened the 10,000 square foot museum in Natick, Mass. in 2004 and has filled it with over 7,000 military and historic artifacts of World War II.
Oh, I bet his wife was so happy to get that stuff out of the house.
Can you imagine
it's in the garage, the living room.
Well, then, if anyone is on the East Coast at all in the months to come, part of the efforts to promote the documentary will be tours of the museum given every 2 weeks for the next several months. And the next tour is scheduled for Thursday, July 21st. And what's even more cool is that some of the veterans who are featured in the documentary are leading the tour, are acting as tour guides. So if anyone wants more information, please visit museumofworldwarii.com. So II obviously is World War II. That's just so cool.
It is so cool, Robin. It's so funny, because I have that problem when I do Google searches for World War II, because I never know whether to put WW space 2, WW2, WWII.
Yep. Well, this is II, and so it's museumofworldwarii.com. So please check them out. And I know my husband and his brother are heading down there at some point in time, because my brother-in-law doesn't live very far from there. So they're going to check it out, and we'll give you a first-hand review.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. I mean, there's so many, what I found doing this radio show is that most of the stuff, Rob, don't you agree, is this small, everything starts at the small grassroots level.
Yes. Yeah.
When I think of Andy Grant and Give to the Troops and Carolyn Blashek and her Operation Gratitude, and, you look at these museums that start out of personal collections and then they just kind of take on a life of their own. It's amazing what we do as individuals to honor our military, honor our past, and honor our soldiers and Marines.
And it is a wonderful vehicle for us, and those in the civilian arena just don't always have a way to say thank you. So what better way than to honor them by creating these tributes, and whether it be a documentary or whether it be articles or a continuous blog or whatever, those are the ways that we can truly say we thank you. And I look forward to having the family go down and visit this, because I'm sure it's just going, with over 7,000 military artifacts, I just can imagine that this is just a stunning place to visit.
It has to be, because, one of my neighbors, back home where I'm originally from, outside of Rochester, New York, he collects World War II memorabilia, and it's everywhere in his house, Robin. It's in the living room. It's in the bedrooms. It's in the kitchen. It's so totally taken over his house. And what's really funny about this guy is he's a native Australian.
Oh, how interesting.
And, and they're deciding, what to do with all this stuff, because he's a serious collector. He travels all over the world, to get these, items. And he's got, shells, he's got, casings, he's got, guns, he's, anything you could possibly, uniforms. And, it's his hobby and his passion in his life. And, it's so amazing to me when I think of the passion that people have for our country. When we had Rita Cosby on a couple weeks ago in her book, Quiet Hero, Secrets from My Father's Past, her father was born, I think he was born in Poland, wasn't he?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, it was Poland, and here he is. And that's that's why the country exists. You know what I mean? It's like we come from different places around the world. My family came from Germany and Poland to the United States. In the early part of the century and just before World War II. And we come here to make this great contribution that can't be made anywhere else.
And what's kind of interesting, too, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, it's wonderful to have different perspectives, because if this gentleman you were just talking about is from Australia, that's a whole different perspective if there were people that he knew. I think it's awesome when somebody really is collecting from all these different countries, because every single country had a different contribution, a different mission, a different purpose in the war, and to be able to look at it from all different points of view. I even still like watching Midway or one of those movies, in that you see the other side story as well, and it's just kind of it puts everything, I don't know, in a different light, I guess.
Well, and I think it reminds me of, the documentary filmmaker we had on that did that, the Mère St. Glaise, the woman who attended to the graves of the American soldiers, and she was the French woman, the mayor's wife.
Yes, the keeper of the cemetery,
the keeper of the graves, and sending rubbings back from the headstones to the families in the United States, and it really shows how unified we can be.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't always unified.
It's very, very true. That was such a beautiful, and there again, those podcasts are all available on our website and on iTunes. We've had some very, very interesting people. How lucky to be able to share that.
Well, and how lucky we live in a country where we can contact, because we have everybody from the Department of Defense to, a PTSD expert in Michigan, doing his own thing and making a big difference in the work he does. That was our Fuzzy Manning show. And,
yes.
I like PTS, so we have to, he likes to take it off. And, but a lot of these things, we're making up stuff as we go along. When we have those authors on that wrote the books about the moms, being deployed and the moms being sent away, and sometimes the moms and the dads. There's so many different things that are happening in this war that haven't happened in the past. And for those of you just tuning in, my name is Sandra Beck. I'm here with Robin Boyd. Our guest after the break is going to be Commander Sheri Snively. She's written this outstanding book called Heaven in the Midst of Hell. You can hear us at TogiNet.com. You can pick us up on iTunes under Military Mom Talk Radio. And Robin, it's going to be great. We're going to come back from the break.
Sounds great.
Are you a military mom looking for help in dealing with the system? Keeping the home fires burning? Well, that's what we're here for. It's Military Mom Talk Radio with Sandra Beck and Robin Boyd. And we'll be right back after these.
The Multi-Ethnic Church with Mark DeMoss, Thursday afternoons at 1, noon Central, is a show that passionately addresses the question, if the kingdom of heaven is not segregated, then why on earth is your local church?
They call us diversity, but colorful good. It's like a freak show in your neighborhood.
Yes, increasingly, our diverse population and the diverse families it's producing is reshaping the face of the local church as people are beginning to recognize the power and beauty of walking, working, and worshiping God together with others of different backgrounds. How can your church overcome the obstacles, and why should you even try? Join a live chat with guests from around the country and the world to learn the effectiveness of churches in the 21st century beyond race and class distinction. This show has its pulse on what it will take for the church to find real reconciliation in our generation. So tune in for the Multi-Ethnic Church with Mark DeMoss, Thursday afternoons at 1, noon Central, here on TogiNet.com.
Evermore, people have the means to live, but no meaning to live for. These are the words of Dr. Viktor Frankl, the inspiration for the movie Victor and I. That's VIKTOR and I, movie.com. And Talk Sense Radio, The Meaning Connection, with host Mary Simaluka and frequent contributor Alexander Vesley. Friday afternoons at 3, 2 Central on TogiNet.com. More and more people today are discarding their quest for money, possessions, and things, and are instead beginning a serious quest to find meaning in life. Until now, these discussions were historically in the hands of priests, ministers, and scribes, then to philosophers, psychiatrists, and psychologists. Now, These deep discussions are where they should be, in the hands of individuals, on the air with you. Talk Sense Radio, The Meaning Connection, with your host, Mary Simaluka, and frequent contributor, Alexander Vesley. Friday afternoons at 3, 2 Central, on TogiNet.com.
Put a boot in your ass, it's the American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list, and a statue of liberty started shaking.
Welcome back to Military Mom Talk Radio on TogiNet.com. Covering topics to help on the home front with help from those who know how the system works and how to work the system. It's more fun than a sale at the BX. Now let's get back to it. It's Military Mom Talk Radio. Here again are your hosts, Sandra Beck and Robin Boyd.
Hello, Military Moms. This is Robin Boyd. We're back. Sandra Beck and I are looking forward to welcoming our guest today. She is a U.S. Navy chaplain. She is a commander. She has a B.S. in mechanical engineering. I don't know how she has done everything that she has done because she looks so young on her picture.
I know.
Do we have Commander Snively with us?
Yes, how are you?
Very good. Welcome.
Thanks. Good to be with you guys.
Well, your biography is just so amazing, and I can only imagine that there must not be a spare minute of your day. How do you go from, say, being in high school to being a Navy chaplain to being a mechanical engineer? Where did your path take you?
Well, it was a pretty circuitous journey, as you can imagine. And yes, you're right. Life is spinning pretty fast, even still today for me. I started out originally in the Air Force, and that was part of how my path took me into economics and engineering. And through a chain of events, I decided to get into the Navy and quit my job in engineering and go to seminary. So, of course, to be a chaplain in the military, you have to train in your own denomination, whatever that is, and then once you receive the training and the ordination and the recognition from your own faith group, then, of course, you can go in to the different military services and receive the military-specific kinds of training, teaching you basically military protocol, how to be a military officer.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And where did your religious path come into that all?
Well, it's interesting because my mother has a Quaker background all the way back to the beginning of the Quaker movement, which is what makes it kind of interesting for me as a Quaker in the military, because traditionally the Quakers have been one of the groups in this country that have been pacifist. And I get a lot of questions about that. You know, how can that be and how can that happen? Well, as a chaplain, I am a non-combatant. We're not allowed as chaplains to be in that role. That is not our role. Our role is to be there supportive of troops and their families.
So do you carry a gun?
No, we don't. We're not allowed to by law.
Okay. And I'm the ignorant part of the group. Robin's the smart one. I don't even know what a Quaker is. I mean, I hate to tell you this. My experience with Quakers is really oatmeal.
Well, if we remember a little bit of American history, they were instrumental in, obviously, the state of Pennsylvania, and also a lot of some of the background of the writing of some of the original documents of this country and what was included in them. They were kind of a radical Protestant offshoot from the Anglican Church in England in the mid-1600s. I mean, that's kind of the quick and dirty history.
Okay. So how do you marry that with war?
Well, for me, it's kind of interesting because my father was a Navy veteran, 30 years. He spent 3 years on a battleship and then went to flight school as one of the enlisted pilots of World War II. And then from there, he spent 27 years as a pilot. So he was Navy all the way, and then, of course, my mother's background was Quaker all the way back. So I'm kind of at the center point between those two streams of thought and also life experiences, I guess. So I guess for me, it was never really a question because that's kind of how I grew up, blending that. And like I said before, I think for me, I'm very comfortable with that from a theological standpoint because I am a non-combatant. And Quakers have always been able to have a matter of conscience, and there have been several or many who have served well and faithfully in roles such as medics. So in support roles, the human aspect. And so for me, it works well.
So when you're doing your thing, is somebody protecting you?
Yes, we have someone that we call RPs, religious program specialists, who all work as our admin personnel as well as in a combat zone. They provide our protection.
And then what do you do? Like, are you there to, like, I'm Catholic, so I only know about confession. I mean, I'd be like, oh, my God, somebody's shooting at me. Commander Snively, come quick. I need to confess some things before I get shot. But what is, like, walk us through a typical day.
Well, in some respects, what you quickly find out as a Navy chaplain, and I think what makes it so exciting, quite frankly, to be in this kind of work, is that there's never a dull moment, and no day is ever the same. So there's a lot of variety. And so some days you might just have people coming in for walk-in counseling, but other days you have a lot of activity out and about. I think that's what characterizes chaplaincy ministry as being very different from anything else, is because we actually are out there with the people as they're living, as they're working, as we're having chow together, as we're working out in the gym together. There's no other place where I guess ministers and people that represent the spiritual aspect of the human person are that well integrated into somebody's life.
Absolutely. Usually, you walk into a church. Sometimes you only go on Sundays or only go on holidays or go to temple, and you really don't live with them, unless you're the pastor's wife. But you don't have that. You're literally with them, sometimes probably 24/7 or, while things are going on. So what do you do if somebody who comes to you who's Jewish? Are you skilled in all those different denominations?
Well, at least we have some passing understanding, but what we do is we provide for our own people, of course, whatever their specific religious needs are, and then we facilitate for other people. So what that means is if we cannot provide their specific religious need, then we find somebody who can. And either that's a professional that we call in from the outside, or we do have a network of lay leaders that can help out. And then beyond that, we care for everyone. So lots of times I think that just having a listening ear, being that ministry of presence of somebody that really cares, that is outside their chain of command, can make the difference for people.
Absolutely. So you specialize then in the Quaker service men and women, and then administer to as much as you are able to in the other denominations.
Absolutely. There aren't many Quakers in the military, quite frankly, and so,
I was going to say, I never saw on MASH, I need a Quaker stat.
Yeah, exactly. So in many respects, I kind of cover that general Protestant flavor. But in Iraq, when I was over in Iraq, I was working, my primary duty was in the trauma hospital and the morgue, and also working with the EOD guys, which were the bomb guys that were out there on the roads hunting for the IEDs and things like that. So I wasn't doing a lot of what I would call specific religious provision. I was doing a lot more ministry of presence, kind of counseling people just as they're working and being there.
And so counseling is probably a huge part of your job. And do you counsel from the spiritual aspect, or do you counsel when I have a counselor, that worked me through the divorce and my kids, and she would cover everything. Do you overlap between that, or are you really just from a spiritual perspective?
Well, I think everybody has their own personal flavor on how they do what they do and what they're comfortable with. Of course, we would bring in the spiritual aspect of it, and then we also act as a resource advisor as well, because there are times and situations where we really do need to refer out to people that are more skilled in specific counseling issues. So I think what we do, we're really the first line people that are there because we are embedded in these units. We wear the uniform, we are officers, and so it makes us very unique among the helping professions. We are there really oftentimes as the front line eyes and ears, and so we do, a lot of our work is a lot of good referral. I mean, if we're doing...
you're also first response. If you're there present, you really have to, kind of, check out the whole situation and determine, what is best for this person.
Exactly. And so we're doing a lot of, quote, first aid. I mean, not necessarily first aid in the physical sense, but certainly in the psychological and spiritual sense.
Right, like psychological and spiritual first aid.
Exactly.
So that then they can go on to wherever they will be treated or back into. What's one of the most common questions you're asked?
Oh, Lordy, I think that depends on where you are and what you're doing. I think it goes back to there's no one day that's the same. I have one of the stories in my book is actually about a young man who had been injured, and here you're thinking that he might ask some of the great questions of life. Wow, that was close. Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Why did I survive? All of those big questions of life that you might expect somebody to be looking at that point.
Sure.
He saw me coming, and I thought it was funny. It was cute, and it was also a very good sign that he was going to be okay. He saw me coming down the hall, and he said, "Hey, Chaplain, I have one question for you. Do girls like scars on a guy?"
Oh.
And so it was really a lighthearted moment in an ER that sometimes saw some real trauma, and so that was an example of a question that I was expecting something completely different than what came at me. And
Absolutely.
That's another thing.
Well, we're going to go to commercial break, Commander Snively.
Okay.
And I'm going to say for most of the women out there, yes, scars are kind of hot sometimes. We have Sheri Snively here today. She's the author of Heaven in the Midst of Hell. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about some of the stories in her book, and it is one of the most beautiful books you will ever see.
Are you a military mom looking for help in dealing with the system? Keeping the home fires burning? Well, that's what we're here for. It's Military Mom Talk Radio with Sandra Beck and Robin Boyd. And we'll be right back after these.
Parents, if you feel overloaded, overworked, underappreciated, and seriously stressed out, The Parents Plate is here to help you. The Parents Plate with Brenda Nixon. Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central on TogiNet. It's time to build stronger families through parent empowerment. And that's what The Parents Plate does. The Parents Plate understands the busyness of life and balancing child rearing and other commitments. Brenda Nixon will be talking to noted experts and authors on all issues, from teething to teen driving. Brenda Nixon is a nationally recognized speaker to parents and child care professionals and author of the award-winning The Birth to 5 book. From Fox 4 in Kansas City to schools and synagogues to businesses to bookstores, conferences to churches, audiences rave that Brenda engages, educates, and encourages. For more information on Brenda and her books, check out her website, BrendaNixon.com. The Parents Plate is loaded with information and affirmation. The Parents Plate with Brenda Nixon. Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
The American Rock and Roll Countdown with Alex Price.
Now this Saturday morning, we're going to count them down one more time from number 40 all the way to number 1 with the official Classic Hits Countdown, the American Rock and Roll Countdown. We'll count down the biggest hits of the 70s with interviews and artist information, news, weather, sports, you name it, we'll have it this Saturday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern, right here on TogiNet for the American Rock and Roll Countdown.
The American Rock and Roll Countdown on TogiNet.
'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land.
Welcome back to Military Mom Talk Radio on TogiNet.com, covering topics to help on the home front with help from those who know how the system works and how to work the system. It's more fun than a sale at the BX. Now let's get back to it. It's Military Mom Talk Radio. Here again are your hosts, Sandra Beck and Robin Boyd.
Hey, military moms. This is Sandra, and I've got Robin on her cell phone.
I am.
You are so dedicated. We all are dedicated to making sure that this radio show stays on the air, goes on the air each week. Mondays, 2 p.m. Pacific time. And, are you going to pull a Hoffman? Are you going to pull a First Sergeant Hoffman and have, maneuvers going on in the back while you talk on your phone?
Almost. Actually, my son is driving right now, and we're probably going to go in and out of dead zones, but I'm enjoying this conversation so much. Commander Snively, you're just so interesting, and I do hope we talk a little bit about your book. We were just getting ready to do that before the break.
Thank you.
Well, and Rob, and for the listeners, I have to describe this book to you first, okay? First of all, it's heavy. It's a heavy, beautifully printed, beautifully bound hardcover book, and it's got these wonderful, big, glossy photographs. But I have to warn you, some of the photographs they're not gory, but they're definitely alarming at times, and they really put your heart to the test when you look at it. But this is a beautiful gift book, and I want to say that we have not had any support or endorsement of this book. We're not paid to recommend it. It's so beautiful, and it would make just the most beautiful gift. And what I loved about it the most, Commander Snively, when I first saw this, I thought, a Quaker chaplain, she's going to preach to me. It's going to be religious in nature, and it's not. You've got these amazing stories in here, and they span, I couldn't even pick which one I wanted to talk to most. You write about the cops, the teacher, and the Beanie Babies, and then, when I think of our combat cougars, there's the one, I Feel Pretty. I mean, it just spans the whole variety, or the whole, I don't know even how you put it. It's just, there's so much going on over there, and you're on the front lines. And now, first, where did you get all these photographs? Because some of these are really awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Actually, I took them all myself with 2 little pocket cameras that I had with me.
Really?
Absolutely. I had 2 little cameras, and at the time, they were only 5 and 6 meg. And they were cameras that would fit in my camis.
Because, you cover everything from, kind of what I expected to see, which are, pictures of soldiers and, pictures of people in front of equipment and, some, bloody uniforms. But then you have, a blown-up tattoo, of looks like the Grim Reaper.
Yes.
And then a Santa Claus holding a machine gun.
Right.
I mean, you have really captured, I think, so much of what we don't see in today's media because everything's so sanitized.
Yes. And one of the photos in the book, I just received word, is actually going to be in a fairly large art show here in San Diego coming up in August. So,
which photograph is that?
It's a photograph near the end of the book. It's one of a menorah. It's a makeshift menorah made out of Coca-Cola cans. At the time, the rabbi came through. It's on page 254. The rabbi was coming through to do services during the holiday season, and nobody could find the menorah in the chapel area, and so he had to make do with what we had. So he set up a menorah made out of Coke cans, and what makes it so intriguing is the Coke cans are written in Arabic. So I took this photograph, this shot of the glowing candles and these red Coke cans written in Arabic. It really is kind of a striking picture. It says so much sociologically. It says so much kind of spiritually. There's a depth about that photograph, and I guess some other people thought so too. So I was very excited to get that word.
Well, that is, I mean, it is, but there's, and I'm not going to, say that this picture is any better or worse than any of the other in the book. There's a lot of pictures that you look at and you just go like, and it goes right to your heart, and I get chills and I get all teary-eyed, because Robin will attest I'm the crier on the show.
I have my share of tears too, my dear.
Well, I'll tell you, there are times when I still look at...
I even hate to say coffee table book because coffee table doesn't do it justice.
Right.
But I think anybody who has someone who served or is serving, it's just such an amazing, it's just so beautiful. You have captured so many different things. And, and I look at books all the time because people send us books to review for the radio show, and it's very rare that I wax on and on about this, but you can't really sit down. It's not a cover-to-cover read. It's like you read the story, you look at the photo attached to the vignette or the story, and it's just, I think you need to be for a moment.
Right.
Isn't that beautiful, though? Because why would you want to read something like this cover to cover? Because you really do want to absorb the moment, the content that you just, the scenario that was just there, and that deserves time in and of itself without moving on for a bit.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, and the one thing, too, Commander Snively, I look at, we had, we have a lot of different charities that come on our radio show, and I remember Carolyn Blasek talking about the Beanie Babies that, when she started putting the Beanie Babies in, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago into the Operation Gratitude packages and, the use of the Beanie Babies over there. And I would retell her story to different people, and people kind of look at me skeptically like, yeah, Beanie Babies, really? They're going to trade them with the kids to get information? Yeah, right. They're going to really wear them in their pocket. And then I go through your photographs, and not only do you have, the Beanie Babies on a bed in, that photograph.
Yes.
But then you have actually 3 different photographs, and maybe I counted wrong, but 3 different photographs with soldiers with stuffed animals. You have an Eeyore and then one with another little thing sticking out of his pocket.
Exactly.
So can you tell me a little bit about that? Because we do get a lot of donations from our radio show to Operation Gratitude, and we want to thank Beanie Babies for providing these. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the story?
A little bit about the story?
Yeah.
The story that you're talking about was with some Iraqi cops that had been blown up in a bus, and they were in our hospital receiving treatment, and then another young man who was a teacher who was also Iraqi. And that photograph shows a pile of Beanie Babies on the bed, and it was just one of those lighthearted moments. I mean, there were so few moments, really, where people were smiling that it brought a moment of, I think, peace and connection to everybody. I know that sounds so cliche, doesn't it? But I think it was really true. And as we sent this young man off who was a teacher, he was only about 20 or 21 years old himself, and we sent him off literally with a bag of Beanie Babies for his students that he was teaching. And my hope, of course, was, and I told him through a translator, that he would tell the story of the Americans being there and what we did for people, both friend and foe, and how we tried to help heal the people that came in wounded. And I think he was very touched, and he went away saying, yes, I will tell the stories to my children, meaning he didn't have children of his own, but his school children.
Right, his students. But he probably, when he does have children of his own and does get married and carries on the stories, and it's just, to me, so arresting in these photographs to see, what we take for granted here in the States. My kids are spoiled. Most of the kids are spoiled here. They've got 50 Beanie Babies, and, my son's favorite is this little rat. And, to take this, I just wonder if the manufacturer of Beanie Babies would ever really realize what a role their little toys that they made to make $1 million or $10 million would play in the part of our war. I mean, that's just such a cultural, strange phenomenon that you couldn't write.
Well, and what's funny, too, is you wonder, where are these Beanie Babies today? Are they still some loved little critters sitting on somebody's bed? And we used to kind of laugh, too. We would go out and to our supply boxes, and we used to laugh and say that apparently they must be multiplying in those boxes at night, because we just had boxes and boxes and boxes of Beanie Babies. But we really did use them, especially when children came in the hospital wounded. I mean, they really did make a difference.
It's that's such a beautiful thing, and it's such a testament to you never know what one little bit of kindness could do to make a difference in somebody's life.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just the little things. I mean, I have in one of the other stories, too, and you talk about the little things like that, the little lotions and shampoos and things that people would send over. You know, again, people might say, oh, well, what do you need that for? Or you can buy shampoo at the PX on the base or whatever. I was lucky. I was on a base that actually had a small store. But, you know, I think it's the reality is when you're over there, it's not so much what's being sent. It's just that somebody cared enough to send something. It's
That's going to make me cry.
It's the making of the connection.
Well, and just, you know, the connection that you make with this book, you know, not only through your photography, but it's beautifully written, and you have a knack, Sheri, if I can call you that, you have a knack,
Sure.
Sheri, of just picking up either, I don't know if it's the absurdity, if it's the, you know, juxtaposition of two really, really different things. It's just amazing. I mean, I can't tell you.
Right.
Beyond the beautiful book, it really makes you think.
Right. Well, I hope so. I think so. I think also, since this is a radio program about moms, too, I think for me, I have two kids, and my kids were 5 and 7 when I was over there. And also, it's been very interesting meeting a few of the moms of some of the guys that are actually in my book, some of the stories, and the connection afterwards. So in many respects, the journey continues. And some of the moms that I've met, some of the guys lived through it, and one of the moms that I've met, her son did not make it. So it's been a very interesting connection in that sense as well, very healing, not only for them, but for me. Because you guys were talking about crying, and there are times when I look back at these pictures, or maybe I reread a story when I'm doing a presentation, and yeah, it still impacts me. I mean, I kind of choke up at times.
Well, and Commander Snively, we've got to go to commercial break. We are here today with Commander Snively. She wrote this amazing book, Heaven in the Midst of Hell. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about where you can buy this book.
Are you a military mom looking for help in dealing with the system? Keeping the home fires burning? Well, that's what we're here for. It's Military Mom Talk Radio with Sandra Beck and Robin Boyd. And we'll be right back after these.
Come be a part of Pat Sloan's Creative Talk Radio. Her goal is to inspire you to be creative every day. Pat Sloan's Creative Talk Radio, Monday afternoons at 4, 3 Central on TogiNet.com. Pat lives and breathes being creative through her quilt design business, but her creativity and interests have no bounds. On her show, she'll be introducing us to guests through interviews and talks that have a creative life. We'll learn more about what goes on in the world of quilting. And since Pat, like many of us, is creative in many ways, she'll also introduce us to creative people in other crafts like knitting, crochet, paper arts, and lots more. Pat is also an author, a lecturer, designer, and cheerleader of many. She's tried her hand at making almost everything you can think of and does many crafts to keep her inspired to create. Check out her website, patsloan.com. What makes Pat most happy is to inspire others to be creative every day. So join us for Pat Sloan's Creative Talk Radio, Monday afternoons at 4, 3 Central on TogiNet.com. I am not the woman I used to be. I'm free with Minister Diane Jones. Monday nights at 10, 9 Central on TogiNet. This is your chance, ladies, to hear stories of hope and healing from someone who's been there. Someone who has fought back from the horrors of incest. Minister Diane's innocence was stolen from her in the land of alcoholism and mental illness, which led to her being emotionally, physically, and sexually abused by her parents. Yet in spite of this trauma, she has gone on to become a successful wife, mother, registered nurse, and minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Not the Woman I Used to Be. I'm Free is a straight-up show to enlighten you and to lighten your load. Do not let the weight of this world or the things that have happened to you control your life. For more on the show and Diane and her book, The Story of Me, email her directly from her show page here on TogiNet. Then, join us for I'm Not the Woman I Used to Be, I'm Free, with Minister Diane Jones, Monday nights at 10, 9 Central on TogiNet.com.
Put a boot in your ass, it's the American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list, and a Statue of Liberty started shaking.
Welcome back to Military Mom Talk Radio on TogiNet.com. Covering topics to help on the home front with help from those who know how the system works and how to work the system. It's more fun than a sale at the BX. Now let's get back to it. It's Military Mom Talk Radio. Here again are your hosts, Sandra Beck and Robin Boyd.
Hey, military moms. We're here today with Commander Sheri Snively. She is a chaplain in the Navy. She is also a Quaker. She's written this great book called Heaven in the Midst of Hell. It's a beautifully executed, photograph-rich coffee table book that will make you cry, make you think, and even in some places make you giggle a little bit. I think you took a very difficult subject and sometimes gave us a little relief, a little lightheartedness throughout.
Yes, it's not heavy all the way through. It has some, like you say, it has some light moments.
But that's
Well,
so
and
cathartic,
some
isn't
of these,
it?
I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's a cathartic thing, to be able to go through a sadness or go through a joy, a relief, and have that vehicle to bring you through it, and that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Well, and what's even better about this book, Robin, is that a portion of the proceeds from this book will be donated to... Now, which wounded warrior, or do you have a bunch of them?
Well, right now I've been working with a retreat center in Arizona who is actually helping out with the wounded warriors coming home. They provide retreats for free for veterans who want to do some processing of their trauma, basically.
It's so important, especially because, you know, what we're hearing, Commander Snively, what we hear from a lot of the people coming in and writing into our show is that they can't afford the services that they need, and also the services are not available in small towns or rural areas. You know, people are doing the best they can to help, but without generous donations to help programs, and especially, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it's a little program. You know, everybody's comfortable giving to large companies and, you know, the big organizations, and they do a great job, not to take away from them, but it's so hard for smaller organizations to get started, and we have so many people to serve in so many different capacities, and, you know, so I was so pleased to see that.
Well, and I also think that it's going to take a little bit of everything, not just traditional approaches, but I think that everybody finds their own healing journey, and for some that may include journaling and writing and maybe some complementary therapies of different kinds, and so I think it's really important to try to support those kinds of things as well. Not just kind of the traditional model of what we've always sort of done to try to help people with trauma.
Commander, in the last segment, you alluded to making speeches or giving presentations. Do you present this book in a public forum ever?
I do. I've done a number of presentations. I've presented at professional conferences, and I've also done a lot of community speaking at libraries and also service organizations and things like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. That just brings it all the further. And how would people get in touch with you if they were interested in inviting you to their event?
My website is www.ravenoakspress.com.
And we'll find all kinds of, not only contact to you, but I'm sure it's all about the book there as well.
Right. There's contact with me there, and then also the book is available on Amazon.com and also BarnesandNoble.com.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Commander Snively, what would you say was the couple most What was the most unexpected things that you've learned in your career that you never thought possible, that you learned in serving as a Navy chaplain? And you brought up that wonderful moment, where the soldier asked you, do girls like scars?
Mm-hmm.
Can you share us a couple of your unexpected, not so much the moments, but your learning lessons that you've taken away from this experience?
That's an interesting question, and I think that my first answer is I've learned a lot about myself and being able to face your own fear, being able to go into combat. Because go into
combat unarmed.
Exactly. And try to be strong enough to be there to help other people. And so when you first look at that, you think to yourself, can I do it? And I think that we all kind of have those moments where we wonder if we're going to be able to withstand it. Whether I had conversations like this with the corpsman, very young corpsman, who had the same questions. Am I going to be able to do my job? I think that the combat soldiers that are actually carrying arms have that question too. Am I going to be able to do it and not let my guys down? So I think digging deep within yourself and realizing, yeah, you can do it. You're strong, and maybe even stronger than you ever realized. I think that's one thing. The other thing is to staying open to the mystery. I think sometimes people want to put their religion or their God in a box, and I think for me, what this experience has taught me more than anything else is you can't do that. Life and God, or whatever you want to call it, won't let you do it. It's so much bigger than that. And so
now let me ask you, when you say staying open to the mystery of God, explain that, because I don't understand that.
Well, I guess the story that illustrates that for me is at the very back of the book in the last chapter. I have a story where I'm talking about coming home, and basically I'm having a flashback. I'm remembering on the airplane home the last bodies that we processed in the morgue. And so I'm reflecting on that. And that was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. So now, fast forward 4 years later, I end up meeting the mother of one of these young men, quite by accident. I mean, we didn't know each other. And I'm a reservist, and I actually met her last summer, while I was actually doing a funeral for her father-in-law over in Honolulu.
Oh, my gosh.
So, what are the chances of putting that together statistically? I mean, you couldn't make the story up, and you couldn't figure out statistically how to make that happen.
No.
So I think it was really, truly a divine appointment that she and I ended up meeting. And then we walked down to this young man's grave because he's buried over in Honolulu. And I just happened to meet her because I happened to have a reserve billet that now I'm going over to Hawaii to do my reserve duty about once every quarter. So how do you explain stuff like that? And you see enough of that happen when you're over there in a combat zone. The typical stories of why do some people live when they should have been blown to bits, and why do other people end up dying? I mean, it's some of those kinds of questions you just don't have the answer for. But if you stay open to it, I guess those little moments of grace will come through, and you'll see those connections, and you'll realize that there's something much bigger going on here.
Wow. Well, and that there's a plan, is what I'm hearing you say, is there's a plan. We may not know what that plan is, but that things are happening the way they should, they're unfolding the way they should, and that it's not just random.
Well, and that you stand in awe. I mean, I just think that, to me, it enlivens your own spiritual quest. I think that sometimes we can't figure it out, and maybe what we're supposed to do is just sit in awe and wonder and ponder. And that's okay not to have the answer.
Our humanity sometimes gets in the way of listening to what God is maybe trying to either show us or tell us. And sometimes that's what we've got to do, is slow down and put logic away and put our humanity away and open our heart and be able to say, okay, this is my purpose, and this is what you're trying to show me.
Well, and to me it's about connection both to yourself, to spirit, whatever you want to call that, and to other people. So connection, compassion, gratitude, and learning to flow in the movement of the universe or the spirit. So
now, and going along with your, what you're teaching us, for the military moms that are listening today, and their wives, their mothers, their sometimes aunts and sisters, we really hit a broad audience beyond motherhood. What is your best advice that you can give us, stateside or, in support roles from your experience?
Wow. Again,
I'm throwing these awful ones at you, but you're just too good not to.
That's a big one, because really it is situation dependent. I think, bottom line is you want to know that there's a connection there. I think, like, for example, for me, one thing that my mother did, here I'm older, my mother's older, she's had her husband, my dad was 30 years in the Navy. She never in a million years expected to have a daughter in the Navy, especially, in older age, because as chaplains we go in a little bit older than most people. And so, but she put a notice out to the whole community in our little community newspaper that I didn't even know about till I started receiving about 100 Christmas cards from people I didn't even know. But people in our community that just wrote me a short little Christmas card. They included me on their Christmas card list and said, hey, your mom told us about you, and we just wanted to send you a card and say thank you and hello and hope you come back soon. So just the little things. It circles back to what we were talking about before. Just sometimes doing the little things is enough to make a difference.
Commander Snively, I'm so glad that you could join us today. You've given us so much wisdom and insight. You've helped so many people with your service. I want to thank you, on behalf of Military Mom Talk Radio and everybody who puts their time and energy into supporting this show, for putting this book together, because it's not a little thing. This is a labor of love. There's a lot of time and effort and a lot of heart that goes into this book. The book is Heaven in the Midst of Hell. The author is Commander Sheri Snively. It can be bought at Barnes & Noble, and it can also be bought at Amazon. A portion of the proceeds from this book will be donated to Wounded Warriors Charities, which is, again, not a small thing. When we come back next week, we will have another author to feature. We're also going to have some surprise, because I will not be here. Right, Robin? You'll be taking over for 2 weeks. I'm going on vacation.
Woo, have an awesome time. Safe travel, Sandra.
You too. Have a great week. We'll catch you guys next Monday.